Welcome back to Summer School E-commerce Ops Edition. Today is actually the final session of our summer school, so thanks everyone for tuning in. Today I'm really excited to have Nick here from the Skio team. Nick, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, as everyone knows, if you've been following around, this is the last session of the series. We like to get right into it, get into the tactics. So Nick, what I'm going to do, I'm going to hand over the mic to you, and then I'll chime in at the end with a couple of questions.
Cool. That sounds fantastic. So thanks so much. So once again, my name is Nick. I work for a company called Skio. Skio's in the subscription space, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to unpack three levers that you can kind of pull on to grow your subscription program. And with that said, let's just jump right into the content. So beyond the pointy part of the funnel, so that expression, I like to think about it is like you imagine a funnel kind of like an upside down triangle. At the top of the triangle, you're focusing on your acquisition, then the conversion all the way at the bottom. What happens beyond that actual conversion? That's when you kind of shift into retention mode. So maybe you've seen kind of like a different diagram that kind of has that upside down and maybe looks a little bit more like an hourglass. So that's really where the subscription element of a business lives. It lives in that retention side of post-purchase, getting your customers to kind of come back and automating the recurring purchase. So it kind of helps to distinguish between these default behaviors. On a subscription, the default behavior is when you take no action, you will repeat purchase, right? So if you buy a subscription, maybe you buy it you can kind of set the interval that you want. You can set a 30-day interval, you can set a 2-month interval, what have you. But if you take zero action, you will buy again, right? It is automated purchase. Ongoing purchases forever. And then you get into this zone where your lifetime value, I'm going to throw some acronyms out here. The lifetime value gets into a position where it will grow and grow and grow and balloon to a size that it is now outstripped the size of your cost to acquire that customer, so your CAC. That sounds fantastic. Everybody wants greater LTV than they want to spend to acquire those customers. But the question becomes like, hey, where do you start? How do you then maximize the impact of these subscriptions? So where do you start from here? I actually pull out this spreadsheet. I call this my MRR calculator. MRR, again, with the acronyms, stands for monthly recurring revenue. So when you're thinking about all of your subscribers that are in, the business, your direct consumer company, all of those customers are generating recurring revenue for you, and typically measured in this MRR metric. Now, whenever someone comes to me though and has this project of wanting to grow their subscription program, I say that's fantastic, but let's really kind of like pull a layer deeper and like try to unpack that a little bit more to understand where they are today, so that we can kind of paint a picture of that goal state of where we can take action to grow the program and to scale that recurring revenue. So what I'd like to look at here are a couple of these metrics that are on the screen right now. So the top one in the first column under the word current, that's how many active subscribers you have. Then below that, these are the data points that I like to collect when I'm working with a new brand. Number one, how many subscribers are you acquiring per month? Right? Enter that data here. The next piece is, what does monthly churn look like? So that's effectively how many people are canceling their subscription on a monthly basis. And then finally, ARPU, hitting you with yet another acronym. ARPU stands for average revenue per user. You can think of that as a little bit of almost like a cousin of AOV, or average order value. So that's how much are your subscribers typically spending? And then with these three metrics, you can think of them as like the three levers. You can pull on these levers to grow your subscription program. So for instance, if you want to grow the subscription program, the numbers that are underneath the word current, that's expressed as the gray line on the graph, and that's in kind of like the dark color on the screen towards the right. So right now, that line is effectively flat. That means the churn and the number of new subscribers you're activating is kind of even, right? So to escape that, you either need to increase the number of subscribers that you're acquiring or decrease churn. So reduce the number of cancellations. You can take both approaches. Often it's like a yes and instead of an either or. But the reality is that all of these companies are strapped for time. So you kind of have to pick and choose and focus your energy on projects and initiatives that will move one of these metrics. Okay. And then that's kind of like the next thing. If you want to take a look at this sheet in more detail, you can reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn and I'm gonna be happy to share it with you. Now, to actually move those metrics, activations, churn, and ARPU, there's some number of strategies that we can take. Now, number one for activations, think about nailing your offer, right? So the strongest growth lever that you have in your business is actually getting people to activate, essentially choose the subscription option. The visual that I have on the screen here is from a company called Groons. You can see this buy box where essentially a couple things are like should be called out here. The auto ship selection is pre-selected. So they have that pre-selected. That's fantastic. They've got a lot of perks here as well. So not only do you get kind of the discount of the 40% off, which is pretty chunky, but you also have this benefit of like a 30-day guarantee, right? So you get kind of this risk reversal built into the offer to make it that much more attractive. Some other things that you can do here is like, increase the value or include things like an announcement bar kind of at the top of your website to encourage people to choose the subscription option. All of these things kind of taken together can help drive the subscription option as the better choice for the new visitor that's landing on your page for the first time. Next lever that I want to talk about is around reducing churn. Now, reducing churn, a big opportunity here is often what this translates to for the brand is taking steps to make the experience stickier for the subscriber so that they don't leave and they don't cancel the subscription. The benefit for the merchant is that they can grow the business and grow their subscription program without having to spend more on paid ads. Right? So it's really nice to kind of like decouple those things from your strategy all in. So one area that I like to spend time on is around the cancel flow. The cancel flow, you can think of that as almost like a survey or a little questionnaire that pops up whenever you hit the cancel button inside of your subscription portal, and typically presents you with a number of questions as to gather a little bit of data as to why you're canceling. And then based off of your selection, at least on Skio, will present you with like different options that you can take instead of choosing to cancel. For example, if you choose that you're canceling because you have too much product, a very common cancellation reason, we could say, hey, totally understood. Did you know that you can change your next order date or you can skip your next order instead of canceling? So things like that, they can prevent that cancellation and keep people on board into the subscription program without overfilling their pantry with, excess amounts of protein powder or what have you, right? Another thing that we can do there is include things like sub reasons. So the main reason might be I have too much product. The sub reason would be something like I have too much product because I was just on vacation, or I never actually got into my, I fell off my fitness routine or something like this. So depending on how you answer that sub reason, it actually presents the merchant with far richer set of like detail as to why that customer is canceling. And then you can present them with a better or more appropriate treatment to kind of keep them on board. Okay. The last thing that I want to talk about here is splash screens. So I think people are very familiar with this idea of using UGC or like influencer content inside of their acquisition funnel. The idea of a splash screen is kind of bringing some of that content directly into the cancel flow or into kind of like that retention experience. So for example, instead of just having kind of a survey that they can interact with and never really have to like engage with a face, you could include like a video from the founder explaining that, hey, you actually see the most benefits from this product when you stay on board for like 90 days. right? And do you know what? You can take a bunch of actions. I understand if like times are tough, we wanted to give you a 10% off discount on your next order. Including video content like that inside of that cancellation flow, whether it's from the founder or an influencer that's attached to the brand, or even like another customer that's produced UGC, super valuable in terms of attaching a human connection with the subscriber that is at kind of like their most vulnerable moment in terms of being super high risk of canceling. Very powerful in terms of keeping those customers on board. All right. The third lever that I want to talk about is that ARPU. So a reminder, this stands for average revenue per user. If on in general, most customers in your subscription program subscribe to one product, your goal should be to, how do I increase that to 1.5 products? Or how do I get that up to 2 products? Getting people into this idea of subscribing to not just a product, but like building a routine with your company. The really cool thing about, or like the powerful thing about subscriptions is that whenever I subscribe to a product on Shopify, Shopify effectively retains that customer's credit card details in an anonymized way on file. So that whenever a customer wants to add more products into their subscription, they don't have to go through the Shopify checkout. So it's very powerful in terms of um, creating this experience where you can grow the size of their basket without injecting the friction that comes with going through that checkout experience. So one thing that we like to do at Skio is use what we call quick actions. Quick actions are effectively links that you can include in emails that take a number of steps and collapse them all the way down to as few steps as possible. So for example, if I was again subscribed to like a health and wellness product like a protein powder, and the company launched a new flavor of creatine powder, or even just a different flavor of the same protein powder, and I want to kind of encourage my subscribers to add that one into the cart or to swap products. You can include a quick action that drives people to one click, add that product into the cart, growing their basket size, getting them to sample kind of this new product, and often giving them early access to a new product drop and treating these subscribers like VIPs. Really cool way to kind of again grow that basket size, increase the ARPU across your customer base, and take advantage of the fact that these customers are, they've already held up their hand as being bought into the brand and the products that they offer. A second thing, or another thing that I can highlight here, is this idea of upgrading from a month-to-month subscription to either like a quarterly plan or an annual plan. So maybe this is the idea of, instead of getting, again, your supplements delivered monthly, maybe you'll get 3 bottles every 3 months. So you're effectively pulling all of that revenue forward and kind of setting a floor for where that LTV will live, rather than hoping for kind of month over month that you might accumulate a kind of this additional revenue value from each of these customers. Super powerful in terms of growing, again, that revenue per customer and moving that LTV number. We are rounding up here. So just as a kind of a conclusion of bringing it all together, the first thing that you want to do when you're kind of growing your subscription program is to know your numbers, right? So highly advise you to kind of break down those KPIs that I discussed at the top of this presentation so you can understand where do you sit today, and if you have goals as to where you want the program to go, it helps you kind of back into the steps that you should take or can take to grow your program. The second thing is to make a strong offer. I cannot emphasize this enough. A lot of people will set up subscriptions and they'll tack on, subscribe and save 10%, subscribe and save 15%, and kind of let it rest, right? This is actually an area of huge opportunity where you can kind of really build a program that makes subscribers feel really special and provides them with really great value, and which is absolutely necessary in order to grow a program. The next thing is to attack churn. right? This is the idea of you're in a better position, or you're better off kind of plugging the holes in your bucket before adding more water in, right? So attack churn, see if you can reduce that. Things like the cancel flow, splash screens, etc. Things like gifts when a subscriber hits a certain milestone, for example, another great churn mitigation strategy. The fourth thing here is to consider how to grow the value of your subscribers. And you can do that primarily by thinking about upsells and cross sells, and how to position new kind of products or complementary products as beneficial to like round out what the subscriber currently has in their cart, and ensure that they're getting, maximum value from the new routine that they've invested into. That's really all I got for you.
Awesome, Nick, I love it. I love how you were talking too about the routines because, of course, that is such a key part of subscriptions, right? And I actually had a question. I know you covered 3 tips, but what is kind of the drop off of a subscriber making that first purchase? Like, I could understand as a buyer myself, right? A hesitation to say, I'm not ready to subscribe on my first order, but maybe when I come back the second time. Anything that you'd share around like how often that happens, then what's kind of like your number 1 or 2 tips to recommend to a brand?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 things there. So the first thing is, I think you just kind of tackle it from both sides.
Hmm.
So accept the fact that people will have a tendency to kind of like want to try before they commit to a long-term thing. So knowing that that is like a very likely to happen, what are the steps that you can put into place, whether through email campaigns or the post-purchase flow, or even part of the unboxing experience, to encourage that customer to upgrade into a subscription, presenting them with either, deals or other perks that they can make use of by choosing to subscribe, and kind of like locking in that rate effectively. The second thing to consider is, how do you make your subscription offer more attractive so that it is almost um, like the default solution, or kind of like choice when a new visitor lands on the page.
Yeah.
Like it needs to be more compelling than the kind of one-time purchase option. And you can do that by a couple things. You can do that but through kind of like the discount lever. I totally don't want to erode your margins, so I don't encourage you to kind of like go beyond your unit economics. It's just not smart business. But you still need to kind of like have some type of offer in there. And you can do that by incorporating things like perks, right? So maybe you get first access to new launches or new products by being part of the subscription group. Or maybe you get access to kind of like in-person events, or you get priority support, or this is the only way that you can access free shipping. So other things like that can kind of like complement and round out the offering that you put together for your subscribers.
Nice. That's super smart. I love the idea too of doing it in the unboxing experience too, because I think that's not something I would have exactly thought about, but a really unique way to kind of add a nice touch to it.
For
Oh,
sure.
well, awesome. Well, really great session, Nick. If the listeners want to take action, kind of put some of this into play with your team, how would you recommend they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So my email is just on the screen there, nick@skio.com. You can check out our website if you're just want to peruse and take a look at some case studies. But yeah, you're welcome to reach out to me directly anytime.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Nick, for joining and for being our final session of the series. So, everyone that's been listening in, we appreciate it. We love your feedback. So, reach out to us if you have any comments or feedback. And that's it for summer school. Nick, thanks again, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.